Well, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Sunday to you. What you got going on? That's right, this is Ms.B. In case you don't know what day it is, it is the third Sunday of the month, and I have my friend, my buddy, my pal, my lawyer, Kush Shukla, Esquire. How you doing, Kush?
I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I am excited, not only just to see you, but this topic, oh my goodness. Everybody, if this is your first time joining me, this is Ms. B, Positively Ms. B, with the leader's voice. I come on every first and third Sunday, and this happens to be Kush's Sunday at 1 p.m. East Coast time with a very interesting topic. But again, you can find me at www.stormtalk365radio.com and on our Facebook fan page, which is Storm Radio 24/7. And Storm Talk 365. All of our videos are available for on-demand listening on both fan pages, and they are eventually turned into a podcast where you can hear Shukla on iHeart, iTunes, Spotify. Our main podcast platform is Spreaker.com, but he is global now. How about that, Kush?
That's great news. Thanks for it.
Not a problem. Listen, everybody, I know we're coming to the end of the year, but we're not coming to the end of a lot of situations in our life that has been impacted by COVID-19, whether it's your job, finances, health, relationships, mobility, on top of, like with Kush's situation, there's some snow up north. But that being said, COVID-19 has impacted a lot of things, including relationships that are not necessarily close. A lot of people in public are bumping heads with each other because you're not 6 feet back. You don't have a mask. Why are you taking the shot? Don't take the shot. Go to church. Don't go to church. There's a lot of different things. But one of the things that, I have been reading about is it going to become mandatory? Are jobs going to make it mandatory? Are there any legal implications for making it mandatory other than in healthcare professionals? Are other professions going to be impacted by the mandatory, if so, vaccine? But Kush is here to give you some insight on those questions that you may or may not have, but either way, we're going to get some clarification. So Kush, tell the listeners what you're going to talk about.
So, like you mentioned, COVID-19 has really affected many people's lives around this country and across the world. So I'm here to talk about the latest vaccines and some of the legal and ethical implications of taking the vaccine. Like you mentioned, whether employers can mandate it, schools, things of that nature, and also talk about some of the science behind the different vaccines that are out there, and why I think personally people should be encouraged by the results from these studies, and they should be encouraged to take it. And look, I understand everybody's situation is different, and they need to evaluate it based on their conversations with their own doctor and their beliefs. But I think people can feel safe in understanding that these vaccines have been heavily tested and that it's safe for use.
Okay, let's start with that. What gives you that sense of security to say they have been tested? It's not because it came up too soon. What validates that thought process for you?
Okay, so the first thing is, and I've heard this from many different people, that it was very quick. The one thing that I want to bring out to light is that the normal vaccine process takes so many years because the majority of that time, people are doing nothing and waiting. So the various researchers that are looking to bring a vaccine to fruition, they're spending time trying to get funding. They're spending time trying to get approval from different agencies, different private organizations, and different bureaucratic organizations. A lot of that waiting time where these researchers are out doing nothing to really to move forward a vaccine has been eliminated with the COVID-19 vaccines. So that red tape has been gone. The funding, which is the principal cause of concern for other researchers and developers, has been eliminated as well, because you have the federal government, you have other governments as well, and you have companies really investing all of their money into research and development to solve this issue, because they know that it is of a great public concern and need. So the timing is not of a concern to me, because I know for a normal vaccine, most of that latency period to have a vaccine to fruition is due to people just waiting for red tape to be resolved and for funding. And for the COVID vaccines, you didn't have that.
I muted myself because I didn't want you to be distracted by my noise. But, that has been one of the things that has been very controversial. How can they come up with something so quick when they've been waiting for vaccines for other things? So the positive thing is that they pushed it through, because it is global. It's not local. It's not, but it is global. But the negative thing is, why would they have so much red tape for other vaccines, and because they're just as important to some people. So why do you think that happened?
I hear you on that as well. And I think just making it positive as well is that this is a good thing in the future for other vaccines. Like, we've seen what can happen when we all come together as a global community, when we get our best and brightest minds working towards a goal. We see what can happen. And I think that this is a great lesson for future vaccines, for future issues that we have to resolve together as a global community. And I think the reason there was so much of a focus on this is because it impacts so many lives. It impacts rich, poor, and also it's just everybody is so susceptible to getting. This is a highly contagious virus that has really impacted the global economies and people's lives. It's affected so many people. That's why there's been so much attention to it. But I think looking at the positive side of this is that we've seen what can happen, what we can do for this issue, and we can expand that to other issues as well.
I love that. Now, I know you've done your study. How many vaccines have been developed and are approved and ready to start distribution? Do you know?
Sure. Let me start out with the amount of vaccines that were studied in the beginning. And I think this will also help people to understand the process and have a little more confidence with the actual vaccines that have been approved.
Okay.
So there were actually globally approximately 63 vaccines that were being studied. Of those 63, 43 entered into phase 1, where vaccine testing was done. Then 20 went on to phase 2. From those 20, 18 to phase 3. From those, 16 were vaccines in early or limited use, and 2 have been approved by the United States so far. Out of all those studies, 1 has been completely abandoned, and the other ones are still undergoing testing. So for people to understand, before phase 1, they have preclinical testing where scientists test a new vaccine on cells and give it to animals such as mice or monkeys to see if it produces an immune response. From there, they go into phase 3 safety trials where scientists give the vaccine to a small number of people to test safety and dosage, as well as to confirm that it stimulates the immune system. Then it can go on to phase 2, which are expanded trials. Scientists give the vaccine to hundreds of people, split them into groups such as children and the elderly, to see if the vaccine acts differently in them. These trials further test the vaccine safety. Then it goes on to phase 3, which are the efficacy trials. Scientists will give the vaccine to thousands of people and wait to see if they become infected, compared to volunteers that receive what's called a placebo, which is just basically a shot of saline solution that does nothing towards the virus. These trials can determine if the vaccine protects against the coronavirus, measuring what's known as an efficacy rate. Phase 3 trials are also large enough to reveal evidence of relatively rare side effects. From there, after phase 3, all that data is then submitted to regulatory bodies to see if there can be approval for the general population.
Wow, approval for the general population. So you mentioned one was totally kicked out, but there is one left. And I understand there are some people who are actually getting doses. Is that true? Are people actually getting immunized at this point?
Yes, so the CDC and the FDA have recommended that healthcare workers, people that come into close contact with patients and come into contact with people that might be that might have COVID, might be diagnosed with COVID, get them first. So people are being people are being vaccinated, in hospitals around the country. I think just this past week, actually last weekend, people in New York State received the Pfizer vaccination.
The Pfizer vaccination, that's the one that the United States has approved. Does that mean that other countries have not approved any of them, or they're just waiting?
So the United States approved Pfizer last weekend, and they actually approved Moderna's vaccine just yesterday. Um, these vaccines, to my knowledge, are being used in other countries as well, such as Canada and the United Kingdom. Actually, I think United Kingdom was the first country to approve the Pfizer vaccine and then allow it to be used on healthcare workers as well. There are other vaccines in the works as well that have been approved in other countries. I know AstraZeneca's vaccine has been approved. There's another vaccine developed by Johnson & Johnson that shows to be very promising. It has not been approved yet. And I think another thing to understand is that these vaccines are different in the way they fight against the virus. Moderna's vaccine and Pfizer is very similar to each other. They both use a technology called messenger RNA. Viruses have DNA in them, but it's not as complex as DNA that's found in human cells. They're RNA. Um, the genetic material prompts the body to produce compounds that look like the outside of the coronavirus, and in turn, that causes an immune response that protects against the infection. The Moderna and Pfizer studies have shown that it's 95% effective in preventing symptomatic illness with few side effects.
You know, we are crossing over into a territory that is in dire need of help. You said that there had been some red tape holding other vaccinations from being approved as readily. Who provided the funding for this? Did the United States do it? Is it private funding, grants? How did this vaccination get approved so quickly?
So you have to look at each individual one. Pfizer, for example, did not take any funding from the United States. They funded it in-house. And the reason they did so, the CEO has come out and said that they did not take any funding because they didn't want to have any type of view that it's somewhat political in nature. Their studies, other companies such as Moderna and AstraZeneca has taken funding from the United States and from other countries as well, to help speed up the process.
We had talked before about what will be some of the interesting topics to discuss. Now that we have this vaccine and they're saying that healthcare workers, people on the front line, should be given first vaccinations, what's the controversy behind Blacks feeling uncomfortable with taking this injection?
Well, I think you have to look at history and, for example, the legacies of different events of the past. And what I'm particularly thinking about is, and I'm sure you might be aware of this as well, and possibly your viewers, the Tuskegee studies. The legacies of Tuskegee and COVID-19 are intertwined. I believe both of them expose the depth of structural discrimination in the United States, and both of remind us to really listen and hear patients when they express distrust or reluctance about medical treatment. For those of our viewers that are not aware, the Tuskegee study began in 1932. it recruited Black men in Alabama who had already contracted syphilis. The men were told that they would be treated for syphilis, but the actual purpose of the study was to learn whether untreated syphilis progressed differently in Black people compared with white people. The federal government never intended to provide treatment, and though penicillin was available 10 years later, the men were not treated with it. And at least 28 or perhaps up to 100 men, depends on the various studies, died from syphilis or its complications by the time the study was halted in 1972. And hundreds went on to infect their wives and who then transmitted the disease to their children. What happened in Tuskegee is terrible and it really repulsive. And I think it's caused a lot of distrust among the Black community. And that's a distrust that lingers to today. But I think what we need to do is really listen to those concerns, address those concerns, answer them to the best of our abilities, and be transparent. Um, you know, it's sad, but we live in a country with organized and structural racism, and this means that Black Americans are less likely to receive health care that they deserve. They're more likely to live in neighborhoods with poor air quality and fewer outlets to purchase healthy foods. They're more likely to work in low-paying essential jobs that put them at risk to contracting COVID-19. For those reasons, I think that this vaccine could be helpful. And you've heard a lot of people come out and really make that outreach towards the Black community.
So now we're talking about Black community, brown, whatever the ethnicity is. Is there anything that gives us an indication that it may become mandatory?
So yeah, there has been different state legislatures that have talked about that, and I can tell you what's going on in my home state, New York. For example, the New York State Bar Association recently passed a resolution urging the state to consider making it mandatory for all New Yorkers to undergo a COVID-19 vaccination when the vaccine becomes available. The resolution, which was passed by a majority of the Bar Association's House of Delegates, included conditions limiting its scope. They included that the state government should only consider making vaccinations mandatory if voluntary COVID-19 vaccinations fall short of producing needed levels of population immunity. And I believe Dr. Fauci has defined that population immunity is, it's also called herd immunity, at approximately 70%. Additionally, they included that an assessment of the health threat to various communities be made so that perhaps the mandate can be targeted, and that a mandate only be considered after there is expert consensus about the vaccine's safety and efficacy. And then also currently in my home state as well, there is a bill that is pending that would mandate the vaccination of all individuals or groups of individuals who, as shown by clinical data, are proven to be safe to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. That bill also takes into consideration if the voluntary vaccination does not create that herd immunity, that it be used.
That term, herd immunity. So let's just hypothetically say, Attorney Kush Shukla, that the herd community is Brooklyn, New York. Okay, Hispanics, Blacks, that type thing. And let's just hypothetically say that the voluntary stats don't substantiate that they're doing a good job. And they become targeted, that it's mandatory that all of Brooklyn get immunized. Let me ask you something. What can they be arrested? Can they be, put on house arrest? What's the implications of not taking the shot once they say you don't have herd immunity?
I don't think the bill that's been presented before the New York State Legislature, for example, has really indicated what the consequences of that would be. I can tell you, if I'm a politician and I'm someone that wants a community to take it, that would something of that nature of some type of repercussion would be the ultimate last resort, and that's something that we could explore later on. But I would do an outreach. I would educate people to the best of my ability, and really show them that, like one of the reasons I brought this topic up with you today is I wanted to really make sure people are fully educated so they can make a decision what's best for them. Um, I think before we get to repercussions, the best idea would be to reach people, to talk to them, to inform them, and really make sure that we can reach that herd immunity voluntarily. Um, I think it's important. And one of the things that I want to emphasize to people is that there are individuals that definitively cannot get this vaccine due to their own um, compromised immune system or from any type of cancer or disease that they currently have. And but those people are also at risk of getting COVID and passing away. So I think as a community, for people that are healthy, that are able to get this vaccine, I would strongly encourage that they do so, because not only are they protecting themselves, they're protecting other people that are more vulnerable and less fortunate than you are.
So I like what you said. I love that answer. Education, make them aware of the choices and the complications that could arise based on their agreeing or not agreeing. Are there anything that the states are doing to set up these, town hall meetings or special conferences or literature being passed out to educate them? They're just saying, shots available, come get it.
I think they're doing a couple of things. I mean, we're also, and this is probably one of the issues that I've had with this current administration, is that there's no uniform policy. They're leaving it up to the states. So every state is a little different. I can tell you from my home state of New York that the governor and the mayor of New York City as well, they have daily press conferences and they release information out and facts and data for people to understand. And I think that's great, and I'm proud of them for doing so. And I think that is helping to educate the community here in New York. And I know that other states are doing the same thing, but I really wish there was more of a federal town hall, so to say, or a real education of the general public at large by the federal government. I think they failed on that front. I'm hoping that this incoming administration does a better job. And I think the other thing that I think is great too is that you have many politicians and many high profile people that are getting vaccinated publicly. And I think that helps a lot. I think it shows people that, hey, if these people trust it, then maybe I can trust it too, or maybe I should learn more about this. And you've had, for example, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris indicate that they would be willing to get vaccinated on camera in public so that people can see it. And then also, I know that former President Obama has said the same thing as well. So I'm hoping that helps as well to really show people that it's safe and that they can trust it.
Not to backtrack on my questioning, but the CDC, is there anything out there that they're doing to help people to understand the importance of this shot? Or are they just, talking about who's dying and who's living?
Well, they do release data out, and they're actually the ones that have reviewed all the data that these companies have presented to them for approval. So I know they're doing that. And also, they're the ones that have really recommended for states to have a game plan as far as one, logistics, because these vaccines it depends on which one we're talking about, but they require different levels of maintenance. So, for example, the Pfizer vaccine has to be, I believe, -70 Celsius refrigerators to store it, and I think the Moderna vaccine is -30 or so Celsius to store it. Is basically a common freezer. So they have been working with states in logistics on how to distribute the vaccine. And they've also been setting up a game plan for states to use in order to prioritize who should receive the vaccine first and then later on.
We're talking about who should receive the vaccine. I know you are very interested in the rights of the people behind the walls, as they call them. Um, are prison systems, jail systems, correctional systems considered to be one of those who must get vaccinated as a priority?
I don't believe I've seen any of the plans for the entire prison population to be vaccinated all at once. However, there are plans for people that are up there in age, that people have underlying conditions. For those in the prison system that are up there in age that have underlying conditions, there is priority in the CDC's papers and many of the recommendations.
Are they going to, well, we're not talking about the employers necessarily, but what about those who are behind the walls? Are they going to have the right to say yay or nay? Or you think they're going to be mandated to take it regardless of whether, the religious beliefs or whatever?
Well, I think right now they're really focusing on voluntarily um, taking the vaccine. I know that there have been, like I told you, there's a bill that's pending right now in New York State to have all New Yorkers take it. But a lot of these bills and a lot of the 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 the, uh, the public discourse on this has really been to really encourage people to do it voluntarily.
Voluntarily,
I can
absolutely.
I can tell you for I think you're going to talk about employers, and there's definitely
That
been.
was my next question.
The next question. You want me to go into it right now?
Yes, go ahead. I'm loving it. That's very important.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of talk among different employment lawyers out there, and so a lot of the lawyers are in the employment area are saying that employers may encourage or possibly require COVID-19 vaccinations, but the policies must comply with the American with Disabilities Act, Title VII of the Civil Rights Act of 1964, and Title VII, other workplace laws according to the Equal Employment Commission. So, for example, any employee with a religious objection or a disability may need to be excused from the mandate or otherwise accommodated. Additionally, if an objecting employee is a union represented employee, the employer may need to bargain and reach an agreement with the union before mandating vaccines. There's, we have the Disability Act in the United States, and if an employee refuses to obtain a vaccine, an employer needs to really evaluate the risk that the objection poses, particularly if an employer is mandating that employees receive the vaccine. Under the American with Disabilities Act, an employer can have a workplace that includes a requirement that an individual not pose a direct threat to the health or the safety of individuals in a workplace. If a vaccine requirement screens out a worker with a disability, however, the employer must show that an unvaccinated employee does pose a direct threat due to a significant risk of substantial harm to the health or safety of the individual or others that cannot be eliminated or reduced by reasonable accommodation. So there are definitely exceptions to any employer mandating a vaccine.
I heard what you said, and I heard what you said. In reality, um, things that are already in place could very well cover what they're asking and not have to explain too much about separation of an employee, because if it is deemed a risk, say for instance, I've been in nursing for over so many years, and if I am working in the hospital and I refuse to take it, and I'm in direct patient care, I'm not in the business office or whatever, I'm in direct patient care, and I refuse to take the shot, they may not be able to fire me because I refuse the shot, but I can lose my job because I am maybe considered a risk to not only the other employers, but my patients. So it's a lot of red tape that needs to be cleared out. But then there's some things that's already set in place that if the employer so chooses to go that route, you may not call it mandatory, but you have a choice that may not work to your advantage. So you
Yeah,
see what I'm saying? It's kind of like a gray area.
yeah, it definitely is because I mean this is really the first time in American history that we're seeing this. So it definitely is a gray area. But I think, for example, one of the things that COVID-19 has done it's shown many employers that people can do their work from anywhere in the world, and they can do it from home. So if there is an employee that has a religious reason why they wish not to take the vaccine, or they have underlying condition that prevents them from taking the vaccine, or some type of disability that prevents them from taking the vaccine, I think that people can work together and find accommodations. If that employee needs to work from home for a given set of time until there really is herd immunity, then that's a possibility. I think I encourage people to really work together on this and find out common solutions.
I agree. You know, they have a lot of things out now. You know, track your exposure. You know, where have you been? Who you've been around? You know, turn this on and we can tell you whether COVID is stronger in your area. And there's a lot of technology available, you know, to people who want it. Now, legally, um, let's say hypothetically, I went somewhere that said it was a high incidence of COVID, and I don't catch it, but I've been where it is. Um, and my name pops up that I've been in that area. How can that be used against me legally?
Well, right now you see some restrictions for people that travel, right? So, for example, in New York, and it's probably even more restrictive in other states. But I'll give you an example. In New York, when you travel to a state or a country that has a high COVID rate, when you come back to New York, you need to present an exam that you have tested negative within the past 3 days, and then you need to quarantine for 3 days and then have another examination that you test negative before you can officially leave quarantine. And so there are definitely restrictions out there, and it's really a balancing act between what we call our Fourth Amendment privacy rights under the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution, and then also the state's right to protect and serve its people. I think generally speaking, in these type of situations, courts tend to give the state more deference in their laws when it comes to protecting the general population.
You know, there's a lot of, as they say, fake news out there. You know, everybody got an opinion, everybody want to say something. But is there anything in place that's legitimate that states or localities are doing, saying if you don't get tested and have this paper showing that you don't have it, you are restricted in your travel? Is that happening anywhere?
So, I mean, like I mentioned, there is a regulation for that in New York. It is tough to enforce though, because I don't, you know, there's thousands of people on flights coming into New York. I don't think they have the resources to really go knock on doors, and they don't really do that. So they do rely upon a lot of people self-reporting and voluntarily reporting. And I think for the most part, people have been complying, and I hope that they do so, because if they are going to travel and take that risk, then they should be cognizant of the fact that they could pose a risk to other people, and really make sure, you know, from a moral standpoint, that they're doing the right thing. I know, for example, New York has said that they would fine people. I'm not too aware of any official fines being delegated out to people with regards to this quarantine in place and getting tested. But it is, you know, a potential fine that people could face. But I'm not aware of any instances where anybody's actually been fined.
Love that. We have talked about quite a few things. We're right around 34 minutes into the interview. And I wanted to ask you, we talked about this on another segment, but could it be that even though a lot of children are doing virtual, college and learning institutions all over doing virtual, but could it be that children could be required to have this immunization in order to attend a public school?
So I can tell you, for the vaccines that have been approved recently, the vaccines have been approved to be given out. I think Pfizer is 18 and up, and Moderna is 16 and up. And the reason they've done that so far is that they're still collecting data on the use of the vaccine for children. They historically the CDC, FDA have been very careful about making sure and protecting children. So what they want to do is they want to study it a little bit more, and then possibly, from what I understand from a recent interview that Dr. Fauci did, is within the next 2 months do limited studies on children, but starting with older children first and working its way down. They do believe that these vaccines will be safe on children, but they still want to make sure that that is the last group that they really look at. Also, because many children are very resilient and their immune systems are resilient, and they're not in a risk category like older adults might be with regards to this vaccine.
And we just segued into my next question. The elderly, pre-existence, conditions, a lot of things are going on, but the high incidences of, COVID is nothing that's a secret. It just, once it goes, it's like roaches. It runs rampant and it's hard to catch it. So how are we going to handle, not we, how do they propose to handle making the vaccine available in the nursing homes, long-term care facilities, among the employers, as well as the residents and or the families?
So for the elderly that are in long-term care facilities, they've actually made them a priority. So they've already, in many instances, been vaccinated. In some states, they've been the first group, in other states, they'll be the second group. And the thing about that, it's actually much easier because they can send the vaccine directly to those care facilities, and where all the people that need to be vaccinated are concentrated in a given location. So logistically, it's much easier than when they would have to vaccinate the general population. And then also the CDC, FDA has made those groups a priority.
I don't know. I don't know if this has anything to do with anything you can say. How is the military handling this? Are they making it mandatory, like all the 12 shots you need to take before you go overseas? I mean, is that a part of their immunization system now?
I haven't seen too much on how the military will handle vaccination process. I'm assuming eventually it will be, delegated to them after healthcare workers, after people in long-term care facilities. I know that the third group has on the CDC or FDA's list has really been first responders like policemen, firemen. I'm assuming somewhere in there, the military will be considered, but I haven't seen too much on that, to be honest with you.
Well, that's a question that was on the back of my mind. How are they going to handle the military and the reserves and anything in the armed forces? Because a lot of them are very mobile. Everybody's just not on a base and stay for 2 years. Some of them do a lot of traveling and based on their classification. So I was wondering how they were doing that. So we talked about the former administration that may or may not have been as organized as we the people would have liked to see them. You being a politician, a lawyer, activist, how do you see this new administration responding? Are you positive? Have they made any efforts to say what they aren't not going to do, or are they just in limbo for right now?
No, they said from the get-go that this is their top priority, and that it'll be the top priority for the president and the vice president. And President-elect Biden has had experience dealing with pandemics and outbreaks, and he's also had experience dealing with economic recovery, because we're also dealing with that as well in this country. Many people have been affected, losing their job from this pandemic, and people, they're still debating a stimulus in Congress to help those people out. So I think this President-elect Biden has experience dealing with these issues, which is going to be very helpful. And then also, I believe a week or two ago, he named his team, his task force that will handle this. And he's named a lot of bright individuals, including the former Surgeon General under President Obama. And he's appointed people that are not politicians. These are people that dedicate their lives towards infectious diseases they dedicate their lives to community health. He's asked Dr. Fauci also to be on his panel, and so I think this is going to be top concern, top priority. He's also said for the first 100 days, he's asking that everybody wear a mask. This is the first time the federal government has come forward and said, "Hey, it's not a political issue; it's a life or death issue. Wear a mask." So I think those are very important steps, and I'm proud of that. And I think those will definitely help us out along with this vaccine.
So we've covered a lot of information about the actual vaccine itself, and you mentioned the economic implications that COVID has had on all different, I guess you could say, economic status. From your point of view as a lawyer, again, looking at the economical status, how are people recovering? Are they able to recoup any losses? Is there anything that's helping those who are being evicted because of loss of income because of COVID? Are there any programs out there available for these individuals?
There are programs out there. It's very limited. I'll give you some examples. In many states, for example, my home state, New York, there is a moratorium on evictions. So landlords cannot evict their tenants for not paying their rent. However, there is no forgiveness on rent. So once the moratorium ends, they can evict these tenants and they can request back pay from rent they have not been able to pay. There have been amazing individuals out there that have helped out people. So, for example, in New York, I know that there's been celebrities that have basically wiped out any debt due to rent for different housing projects, and so that's amazing. But I think we need more help from the federal and state government on those grounds. Also, this is not just a tenant issue; it's also a landlord issue.
Yes.
Some landlords are not major companies or holding properties that own a lot of property and are rich. Some landlords, their only source of income is collecting
Rental.
rent.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly, and maybe they have one property that they have to maintain, and so these properties, the maintenance is actually going up because people are spending more time home, and sometimes when it was a one-bedroom apartment with one person or two people, now they have more people living there because other people can't afford their rent in their location and they need to move in. So I think you need to look at it not just from a tenant problem, but also a landlord problem as well. And there needs to be a more comprehensive look um, at this issue. It's more subtle and very, it takes time to look at every single issue, but it needs to be looked at. I'm hopeful that Congress can pass a stimulus bill. I know that they're in discussions, and as of last week, it looked like they were close to something. But I've heard recently from various news outlets that those talks have gone awry. But
Mm.
I wish they could come together because people are really struggling at the end of the year, and it would be really important to their lives to either receive a check that could help them pay for food and put food on the table or pay their rent or whatever it might be.
It's a domino effect. I'm gonna be honest with you, and it's almost 15 minutes left. It's a domino effect. The landlord, is not in it by themselves. So you have a tenant who can't pay rent, but the mortgage is still due, and the bank is still asking the landlord, "Where's my money?" So then they take a chance on not only having bad credit, but getting the property foreclosed on. And so the bank is like, "I still need my money, even if your tenant doesn't pay." So are there any programs out there helping the mortgage lender to be lenient on the lien holder to be more lenient on the tenant? You see what I'm saying?
No, I get it. I am not aware of anything out there on this regards, but I agree with you 100%. I think Congress should be working with the different banks that give out mortgages out to people and see if there can be some type of resolution or forgiveness or even extension of time to pay a mortgage. I think that would be extremely smart to do. But I mean, what you've seen with this outbreak, this pandemic, is that you've seen an even greater divide between the rich and the poor, and it really is a case where the rich are getting richer now and the poor are getting poorer. Um, you have records in the stock market, but only really the rich own stocks in the stock market, and So I think there needs to be a policy, a comprehensive stimulus that really focuses on people that don't own stocks and that have assets and other means and that need to pay their bills.
That being said, we can go on and on about the domino effect. One thing I did want to say, which is totally, nothing to do with the vaccination itself, but I have noticed that a lot of celebrities, well-known celebrities, comedians, songsters, you name it, are doing commercials that you would normally see unknowns do. I've even seen them do commercials on games on my phone. So what I'm saying is a lot of people are trying to find work regardless of where they were financially before this is going on. That has to say a lot about where they are financially to be doing game commercials on an iPhone. That means find me some work, y'all. Find me some work. I don't want to lose what I have, or I've already lost what I have, or things are getting kind of thin. My life was based on the income that I made when Hollywood was booming. Now Hollywood shut down, and I don't have any replays, instant plays, no plays. So it's not necessarily that the rich are getting richer. It means that the wealthy, yes, are staying wealthy. And everybody else is falling to the side, because unless you really, really have the millions and billions, 100,000 is not going to last you long, especially if your lifestyle was based on continuous income coming in to maintain that. And once that stops and then you start going into your reserves, who are we, paycheck to paycheck, to think we're going to make it if those who were in the hundreds of thousands are now dwelling into their savings and cashing in CDs. You know what I'm saying? So it's a big, COVID has not eliminated anybody from being touched. So that's what I wanted to say. But anyway, we got about 14 minutes left. Is there anything that you would like to say that I have not asked you?
Now, the one other thing, just touching on the economic impact, is that you may see impacts economically for many years to come. And also, there are many people that have indicated that this may accelerate certain trends in the labor force. So, for example, like I mentioned to you earlier, people, I think employers have realized that many people can work from home and they don't need to have those expensive commercial real estate properties that they have for people to go in and to work there. There's been articles out there saying, for example, the commercial real estate market in New York may be hit, it may be changing. And so I think people need to understand, if your line of work is commercial real estate in New York, maybe that might be affected long term, and you may need to get additional skills in a different area. There's other things that are also taken into consideration. One of the things that COVID has done is made employers realize that they can hire people from anywhere geographically, and that may affect your ability to receive a job in your given geographic location. But it also might demonstrate to you and other people that you can work from anywhere as well, and you don't have to live in a really expensive city. You could live someplace else and have a lower cost of living and still maintain a good job. So these are all different factors and considerations that people need to take into account going forward.
I'm loving that. I just have so many other questions, but I'm going to end it with this. Regardless of what you believe or don't believe, I encourage you to consider your choices are your choices. Kush and I believe that you should have every opportunity to not only protect your life, the life of your loved ones, or the life of others. If the vaccine is made available and there are no extenuating circumstances why you should not, please consider doing so. So, Kush, my last question before we leave: what are the financial implications of getting vaccinated? Is it free? Is it covered by insurance? Is it governmental provided? How is this financially being handled?
In the United States, many states have ensured that every resident of their state will receive the vaccine free of charge. So there should not be any financial implications involved in your decision to take the vaccine.
Well, there you have it, everybody. No financial implications. You don't have any health issues unless it's something that you absolutely feel that you just don't want to take it. We encourage you to look at the implications of not taking it and see if it fits your lifestyle. But please consider not being so negative, because everybody's situation is different. And if someone does, have a other opinion of yours, let it be theirs. And you make sure that you maintain your integrity and do what you need to do for your life. But that being said, Kush, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I look forward to you next month. Of course, you don't know what your topic is yet, do you?
No, we can talk offline a couple of things. I
Oh, yeah. Well,
want to do police brutality, but I thought this vaccine being approved recently would have been more current and contemporaneous with our discussion today. So I decided to do that. But maybe next month.
Well, a lot of things can happen in a month, so we'll just wait and see. We might have a whole brand new topic, so we got 3 more weeks before we worry about it. All right, everybody. Kush Shukla is going to come back next month, the third Sunday at 1 p.m. East Coast time with a brand new topic. I really appreciate it. He's very available, accessible. Look him up, Kush Shukla, Esquire. All of his contact information is on his website. He's a civil lawyer, most sought after in the New York City, and we're going to say in the United States. How about that? All right, everybody. Kush, thank you so much. I thank you all. Have a great day. See you next month, the first Sunday of next month, with Brenda Coles, a Leader's Voice, president of the Richmond chapter of NAN, National Action Network, founded by Al Sharpton. Kush Shukla works with them too, right? All right, let me stop. I'm going to hold you back. All right, everybody, have a great day. Bye-bye, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
You're welcome, sweetheart. Bye-bye.